From the 22 News Plus studio, this is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of In Focus. I am your host, Patrick Berry. We're here in the 22 News Plus studios with a couple of members from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation to talk about the evolving west-east rail line that's taking place. It's been in the news for about 6 or 7 years, but it's been in progress for a lot longer than that. So today, joining me in the studio today, I have the two guests are Meredith Schlesinger and Andy Kozel. Thank you both for joining me, driving out here from the eastern end of the state. I appreciate your time to come out here and talk West-East Rail. Meredith, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your role in the Mass DOT and the focus on rail.
Sure, and it's so great to be here today. I'm the administrator of the Rail and Transit Division at Mass DOT. So we oversee the 15 regional transit authorities that operate bus service outside of the greater Boston area. And then we also oversee the passenger and freight rail programs for the Commonwealth. So think about intercity rail, so Amtrak service that we fund in the western part of the state. And we own a lot of right-of-way that's operated on by freight railroads. So that is the general portfolio of the rail.
Okay. Andy, we're going to switch gears to you. Tell us a little bit about what you do for the Mass DOT.
So my role is entitled the West East Rail Director. So my primary duty is to expand passenger rail along the West East Rail corridor between Boston and Albany. And so some part of that is bringing the service itself, but then also a lot of the projects we do are the capital projects, the infrastructure that's necessary to get that service happening. So it's kind of a combination of policy and service together with construction projects.
So I will throw this question out to either of you, whoever can answer it. When did the idea of creating passenger rail service on a more consistent basis than what we've seen for the last several decades, when did that idea first evolve here in the Bay State?
That almost feels like a trick question because historically there has been service, a lot more passenger rail service in the United States than what we would necessarily have today. So I like to sort of joke that there are no new ideas in passenger rail, but we've seen over the past, I want to say, at least 10 to 15 years that the communities out here have really been advocating for restored, renewed Boston to Albany service. And we've over the past several years, done some planning studies and gotten a lot of work to gear up to deliver that in the Boston, provide more service than there is today. Today, if you want to get from Boston to Albany by train, there is one long distance Amtrak train that goes between Boston and Chicago. So not a lot of options. So what we're trying
There's only one train a day?
Only one train a day, only one passenger.
Really? I didn't even know that. I thought there were more than that.
Not that goes from all the way from Boston to Albany. The T obviously goes out to Worcester, but we are really excited about the opportunity to grow service using sort of Springfield as the hub, west-east service, and we have the existing north-south services going from Greenfield to Springfield down into Connecticut.
For us here in Western Mass, it was former Senator Eric Lesser. He really brought the attention to this project over the course of the last, I think it was like 2018. So, to your point, Meredith, it had been talked about for a while before that, but I think former Senator Lesser really made it a greater awareness to the residents out here. And that's where it piqued my curiosity, because I had no idea this was even an idea. To your point, yeah, Amtrak, we all know Amtrak, but I thought there was more frequent Amtrak service.
On the Northeast Corridor, yes, not out here yet.
But that will change.
We're working for that to change.
So I want to switch gears just a little bit. I want to fast forward 15, 20, 30 years. What do either of you see the rail service? And I'm going to stick with the greater Springfield area, Springfield, Northampton, Greenfield area. Where do you see rail service in that period, like 10, 15, 30 years?
Well, we have a phased approach to implementing over the next 15, 20 years. So I'll let Andy talk a little bit about what that looks like.
So sure. So we do have West East Rail service happening soon. And by that, I mean by 2030, we expect to have
It's fairly soon.
trips between Boston and Springfield. These are existing trips that currently operate between Connecticut, New Haven, up to Springfield. We'll have a couple a day able to operate from Springfield to Boston.
Okay.
So that's sort of like our first phase. That's what we call the early actions, and that's our inland route, that New Haven, Springfield, Boston route. After that, there's a plan to expand, add inland route service, and then also that second corridor that we're working on is from Boston all the way out to Albany.
So the first chunk is really getting more frequency out of Springfield, and then the connection to Albany, the frequency of rides from here to Albany is next.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. And also as a part of that, Springfield becomes that sort of hub for transfers. So by building out Springfield, we have some infrastructure projects there that'll make high-level platforms, better track configurations for efficiency. And it really makes it so you can go from Greenfield to Boston with your transfers at Springfield, or you can go from Greenfield out to Albany.
Okay, it's nice that that Springfield will be that hub. Makes sense. It's the largest community in Western Massachusetts. Is this an extension of Amtrak? Is this an extension of the Purple Line? Is this an extension of the T? What is it?
It will be Amtrak service.
Okay.
So we have already a network of services that we fund as the state, or we call them state-supported services. So the Vermonter that operates on the north-south corridor, along the Knowledge Corridor, the Connecticut River Line, the Vermonter, there's the Valley Flyer, and then the New Haven, Hartford, Springfield shuttles that operate on that corridor as well.
There's something on the website talks about the Compass program.
Yeah.
Meredith, explain that to me.
The idea was that we wanted to have a way to talk about all of the different services that we have currently today, and then what we're trying to expand to. And when you draw it on a map, you have the compass with Springfield as the center. But as we've been very fortunate to receive federal funding for the inland route that Andy mentioned, to get that off the ground, and for some of the work at Springfield Union Station that he discussed. And so we found that branding the entire program as a vision, so everyone could see where different elements fit in to that overall vision, made it a lot easier to talk about, and people can see that, okay, the whole thing isn't necessarily going to be done all at once. That's not really how rail projects work, but that incrementally over time, you see these changes and see these service improvements.
We are up on our first commercial break. We're talking about the growing West-East Rail project that's taking place here in the Bay State. We'll be right back in a moment.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back to the 22 News Plus studio. I have with me as guests today Andy Kozel and Meredith Schlesinger from Mass DOT. We're talking about West-East Rail. Meredith, I want to come back to you because just before the break, you kind of alluded to the fact that this isn't an easy project. You know, I think most people would think there's already a rail line between Springfield and Boston, and Albany and Boston, quite frankly. Why not just put more trains on tracks?
That is a very good question. So the thing to remember about rail projects, particularly here, is that we can't do anything alone. So CSX, the freight railroad, actually owns the right-of-way between Worcester and Albany. And so we have to work with them and with Amtrak, because Amtrak has the statutory or legal rights to operate freight railroad's track. So there's a complicated sort of negotiation and legal structure that we have to follow.
So let me ask you, so in that scenario, you said CSX owns the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So Amtrak rents time?
Yeah, essentially there's a fee structure that Amtrak does have to pay, and we have a contract with Amtrak.
Okay.
Money goes from one place to another. But together, it's really a collaborative process between all of us, between Mass DOT, between CSX, and with Amtrak to figure out what the optimal service is that we can run as for passenger service. CSX still needs to run freight service, and we still need to also integrate with service as well. So there are a lot of players, and then when you think about Amtrak is running a national network, and we're using equipment that may end up in New York or beyond on the Northeast Corridor, there are a whole lot of players and a whole lot of things that have to be sorted out in order to figure out how to even start new rail service. So we've been fortunate to have a really great relationship with CSX and Amtrak. And even before we received the federal grant for the inland route, we put together a process where we'll call it computer modeling for these purposes, to figure out exactly what infrastructure projects would be needed in service levels. Discussion. Andy, do you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, I can just say that while the state and the public sector generally drives the passenger rail side of
Right.
things, and particularly in this area, we still have very much a vested interest in making sure that we have a successful freight rail network, because the freight services, they serve our businesses within the Commonwealth, and therefore the citizens benefit from that. So each time that we try to introduce these passenger services, at the same time we're keeping in mind the quality of the freight rail network.
So, and again, for lack of a better description, it sounds like it's a traffic problem on the rail lines. You have to balance all these different entities. You can't just throw trains on tracks.
That's exactly right.
Okay. So I mean, there's multiple users of the tracks, and I don't think a lot of people understand the track limitations between Springfield and Worcester. That they're built for commercial freight trains. Am I correct with that? Not really built for more frequent passenger service?
Well, I mean, that's true, and they're old lines, and because they're old from the 1800s, these corridors.
1800s.
They follow the topography of the area. They follow the rivers of the areas, so they're windy and not as straight as something like the Boston to New York City
Right.
Northeast corridor. And what we're trying to do, because right now it's about 55 miles between the two cities, Worcester to Springfield, about 45 of that is single track. So only one train can
Oh, wow.
occupy at a time. So through this inland route project, we have a $108 million federal grant. We are building infrastructure, including segments of double track, adding that double track back in where it used to be, and it gives the trains a chance to pass each other. So a passenger train can duck out of the way as a freight train passes, and it creates that extra capacity to operate more trains.
So there's a lot of infrastructure work that needs to be done, from the quantity of tracks. Is there work that needs to be done for crossings, road crossings, or bridges or waterways?
Bridges are certainly included in this inland route project. Not at grade crossings, with one exception of a freight connection at the Grafton and Upton line.
Okay.
So yeah, this project does bring in a variety of different infrastructure projects. Some of it's going to be track. Some of it's going to be taking where the sharp curves are and trying to reduce how sharp the radius is, so you can go a little bit faster. Some of these projects are making room for the trains, and some of them also are to just speed up the trains. So we hope to shave off about a half an hour of the passenger travel time between Boston and Springfield.
So what's the standard travel time now between Boston and Springfield?
It takes about 2 hours, 40 minutes.
So the goal is 2.25.
2:10, maybe a
Okay.
little bit less.
Okay, so ideally 2, but a little bit more than 2, which is still, I have to say, if I live in Westfield, so driving to Boston, as much as the maps on my phone tells me it's 90 minutes, it's never 90 minutes, and we all know that. So an extra half an hour, but it's a relaxing half an hour sitting on a train. Now, is the idea to make this more of a commuter rail? So like the purple line, I think, is your commuter rail gets beyond the T limits. Is it to make Western Mass more accessible to Boston from a work standpoint? So, there's a 6 a.m. train, I'll be in Boston by 8 or something to that effect?
So yes and no. So, and just to clarify, the purple line really is the MBTA commuter rail. So that is the MBTA service that operates, is, generally has historically been focused on that, peak period commute time. And while they're going to a more all day service model that really, again, focuses on immediate Boston area, inner city rail, or the Amtrak service, is overseen and funded and sort of regulatory policy wise different under the federal government way we handle transportation. And so intercity rail connects, generally larger markets and runs less frequently than a commuter service. And again, we are limited in capacity, but what we're really trying to do here and what this administration is really focused on is having that connectivity between Eastern and Western Massachusetts so that people can, if they need to, come to work for the day in Boston or go out west for a period of time. That we're making all of these options more accessible so that people can live in communities that they want to live in, that are more affordable, and also have the option to be able to connect to the services for both Western Massachusetts by having frequent rail service to locations.
We are up on our next commercial break. Fascinating conversation about the growth of West-East rail here in the Bay State. We'll be right back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to this edition of InFocus. I am your host, Patrick Berry. We're here in the 22 News Plus studios with Meredith Schlesinger and Andy Kozel from the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, talking about West-East Rail. Thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it. Fascinating conversation. I've learned so much more about rail than I ever thought I would know. But it is interesting because I lived in the New York City metropolitan area and New York City for many years. And to me, trains are it's a natural way of life. You can come up to New Haven, you can go up to Albany, you take New Jersey Transit out to, almost to Philadelphia, Long Island Railroad. It's just a natural way of life. But that's not what Massachusetts residents should expect out of this project, correct?
It will definitely be a game changer. We think why the administration is so invested in it, and being able to provide transportation options, again, east-west and more north-south, so that you can get to your living in Northampton or you're living in Chicopee, that you can get to train service that will eventually take you to or go to Boston. So creating that service and being able to add over time really lets us test to see what resources are available, track capacity, whether the equipment and the labor that we need. Again, we're working with a lot of states across the country who also want to add rail service. So while it won't be like taking the New York City subway, but it will really be from something that we talked about, one train a day today, having the potential for just so much more service in the future. Really game changer here.
So this really does open up the ability. Eastern end of the state is no different than the western end as far as a housing crisis. And I think the eastern end probably struggling more because costs are so high. But people in the Boston area could, say, live in, Palmer, Ludlow. I'm just thinking some of the towns this side of the mountains. They could live there and commute into Boston on a fairly regular basis. That's the idea?
That's the idea. Basically extend the options for quality of life, affordability across the state.
And by doing that, so again, it just Palmer, Ludlow become more prosperous towns. You have more residents living there, more business, greater economic development. Is that the kind of the umbrella idea behind this whole project?
Yes, and economic growth, development, prosperity for cities and towns, and really the people who live in them.
I look at it as, my daughter lives in Medford. I'm a Boston sports fan. I would love the ability to not have to drive there. And again, I look at, you go to a Bruins game, Red Sox, Celtics game, those games don't end till 10:30 some nights. And by the time you're getting back here to Western Mass, it's well after midnight. To not be able to drive or not have to drive and sit on a train in comfort, maybe take a nap, is such a great idea. So all that aside, I've gone on my rant. Where do we stand in the fall of 2025 as far as the project and the process?
Before I let Andy answer, I will just say that it's a program of projects. So there's these various individual projects that make up the entire program. And so I think it's a helpful way to think about what the updates that Andy are doing.
Right. So just like we say, Compass Rail, it's a brand for the services, the existing north-south services, the proposed west-east rail services. Under that banner, there's a multitude of projects. And some of those, like we've discussed, is that Inland Route project, big, over $100 million worth of that track infrastructure, Worcester to Springfield. We've also got some projects that are in design. So like an example, like Palmer Station. We have a planning and design study right now to site and develop some sort of conceptual design of where a station could be and how it could work along the corridor. And then we have other aspects that are in planning. So the Boston and Albany corridor, we're in a federal program. We have a $3.5 million grant that's about to kick off right now. That's going to develop what's called a service development plan, Boston to Albany. And once we're through that, then the expectation through this federal process is that we'll get additional funds to design those capital projects that we identify through the service development plan. So there's a lot happening.
It sounds like really any construction, project, major construction project. There's multiple levels, and things are happening at one pace versus another. You bring up Palmer. I guess east of Springfield, Palmer will be a stop, right?
It's a proposed stop. Yes, it's right now. It's the one stop that's not existing that we are proposing as a part of West East Rail.
The one stop that's not existing. Okay, I'm a Westfield guy. There's a train station right there. Please tell me you're gonna open that as a train station.
Westfield has definitely come up in the past, and
there's plenty of parking there. Sure, I'm just saying.
There is a historic station that's along the corridor. Like any historic station, it's not without its challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
It sits along the CSX main line, and it's sort of precariously placed, right? If you could picture right now where it is, right up beside a rail bridge. Right. What we're doing with that service development plan that I mentioned, one aspect of that is an evaluation of potential stations. So the East-West Rail study we did in 2021, it took a kind of a high-level look at potential new stations. But this is part of this service development plan. We have an obligation to the Federal Railroad Administration to do that formal assessment of different stations. So we're going to look at Westfield. We're going to look at Chester, which has been brought up before.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Right,
and come up with a formal process on how we want to evaluate these stations. And then I'll just mention, this is, as Meredith said, it's intercity rail is a little different than commuter rail. It's all about being express and being longer distance, fewer stops.
Right.
So we're going to have to make some hard decisions about where these potential stations are.
So what can folks expect in 2026? We got about a minute left.
So 2026, we'll be working through design on the Inland Route, getting some ready for 2027 construction. We'll be deep in the process of that service development plan. So that's where the public process will begin. We'll be getting feedback, like where do you think the station should be? How do you think we should access those stations? Okay. And we'll be moving forward. We got some other construction projects going on out in the Pittsfield area as well with CSX to create that corridor capacity. So handful of things going on in 2026.
Fantastic. Meredith, any parting thoughts?
Really glad to have the opportunity to be here and talk about this.
I'm hoping you both will come back because, as I mentioned, it's a fascinating topic to me because of my history living in New York City and the ability to use trains. I'm excited that this idea is out there, and the sad part is it's by the time I'm old, it's complete. I'm going to be an old man. I'll need that train. But thank you both for coming out. I really do appreciate it, and I hope to see you back here.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.